We're gonna have. You want to introduce your panelists?
Sure.
All right, perfect.
All right. I'd love to introduce John Pugetta, right in front of me. John is originally from Connecticut. John calls Raleigh home these days and brings a unique background in consulting and real estate. Along the way, he discovered a true passion for design, and today he blends creativity with strategy to help clients make smart, beautiful investment decisions. Please help me welcome John. My dear friend, best friend, Annie Marquetta. She is the founder and principal designer of Spotted Interior Design here in Raleigh. Annie is known for creating a warm, livable spaces, and they don't just look beautiful, they perform beautifully. Her work helps homeowners and investors maximize both lifestyle and long-term value. We're excited to have her perspective today. Annie is used to being on stage also. If you ever want a great night out in the Raleigh area, Annie has a beautiful voice and is also in a band. And we are going to introduce John Dirk, but we're going to go with Dirk today, just since we have two Johns on the stage. And he is an inventor, architect, and Haven sustainability champion. John holds degrees in architectural engineering and architecture, has filed multiple patents, and brings a powerful focus on environmentally responsible design. His passion is creating spaces that reflect both people and place. Welcome, John. So we're going to do this a little bit differently versus doing a panel. We're going to have a conversation. Annie's going to tell us a little bit about what she does and how she does it and what the results are. John and Annie know each other very well, so they're going to have this conversation together, and then we're going to have John join the conversation wherever he feels that he fits into the conversation. Thank you, all three.
Thank you so much, Maya, for the introduction, and thank you for having all of us here. It really is an honor to speak about what we love doing, what we're passionate about, and to share our knowledge and expertise with all of you. So I'm Annie. I'm the founder of Spotted Interior Design. I also have my broker's license, which I got that in 2020. That's how I know John. We were both, you're still part of EXP, but I was with EXP and Call Group for about 1.5 years, and I was doing that and interior design at the same time. Like our previous panelist, I am all self-taught, do not know anything about design or real estate when I decided to get into these businesses, but just had a passion and a drive to learn these industries, which are male-dominated, as we heard previously. And I loved the intersection of design and real estate, and really understanding, using my broker's license when working with clients in the residential space, to understand what does renovation do for a homeowner's equity and their value, and what are some of the smart decisions that I can help a homeowner make as a designer when selecting finishes and selecting the overall aesthetic of a home, opening up a space, the floor plan. What are some of the areas to focus your budget on? A kitchen, bathroom. Do we have to renovate an entire kitchen? Can we just cherry pick some of the main hard finishes that you see when you bring a buyer in, such as countertops and tile, to refresh a space and update it in that way? So one of the first things that I want to focus on with John, so renovations, these are financial decisions. And so John, we can speak about this, and I know that Dirk, you can as well, with everything that you do. So design choices that directly impact home value, that's going to be when you're walking into a home, what is the perceived value? So finishes that we can select, making sure that these are in line with the level of home that you are renovating. So if we have a $400,000 home, we're not going to be putting $80,000 marble in this home for the countertops. We're going to be selecting finishes that make sense. You don't want to be the most expensive home in the neighborhood. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. So we want to pick finishes that align with the architectural style of the home. So if the home is more of a traditional home, we don't want to skew into the modern mid-century and make it look like it wasn't intentional, the design selections. Same thing with the choices that we're doing. So if we have a $400,000 home, we're going to pick quartz for the countertops, probably a porcelain or ceramic tile for the backsplash. We're going to do cabinets that are not on the higher end of custom cabinets, but more production stock cabinets that we can install. And this is going to help with building long-term equity. This is actually the set that was up before. We'll get to this at the end, but I have some case studies of homes that I've worked on. So John, would love to hear your perspective on that, because I know that you're mainly working with, you're doing your own creative financing with purchasing homes and renovating them yourself. And what do you see within finishes?
So basically, when I go into a house, is everyone here real estate or investor? Raise your hand, show of hands.
Real estate.
Real estate investing. So yeah, I got into real estate just as normal agent, and I learned from other investors to become an investor and then finance my deals creatively. So I don't go for a typical mortgage and borrow money from a lender. Quick example is I just closed on a house last week that I completely flipped. It was a hoarder house. I gave the owner about 40 grand cash, then asked them for 6 months to, turn around the house, sell it, and then pay them the remainder. And then we netted about 200 grand, right? So when we go into these houses, like Andy says, this house is in Apex. We got it for 480. And so I want to, like these guys were saying earlier, I want to plan my budget, but I also don't want to overextend. Like, hey, I'm not going to put Taj Mahal quartz in the kitchen, right? That's like 50 grand quartz. So I look at things like that from the beginning, like the budget, what I want to make, end to end. What do the numbers look like for me to, at the end of the day, close out? And then also pad for unknown things, like we cut about an eighth of an acre of trees down just for aesthetics in front of the house because it was covered. We had to do new siding, things like that. So we look at those things, and as well as kind of figuring out our teams, like who's the team and who do I want to, am I going to invest my own money? Do I want to bring people in and say, hey, I have an opportunity for someone to lend me money. I'll give you a return of 12% per annum, right? 1% per month. So things like that. I get a little bit more into it because I'm the investor myself. Sometimes I've had Annie help me with some layouts where I just get stuck.
Yeah, we trade services.
Yeah.
He takes me to M Sushi for lunch, and I give him design advice.
Yeah.
Now I know what it takes.
How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, so I work for a design build company. So we have both architects and builders like within our team. And I think particularly if you're doing renovations, it's making sure that you have a good team and that you have all the experts that you need to make a really accurate budget, right? So that means understanding the structure of it. And, am I going to need a structural engineer on this? And, renovations can balloon in cost as soon as you take down the walls because you hit all the stuff that you didn't understand. If you want to add a second floor to a house, you need to be really, really sure that everything underneath it, from the walls down to the foundation, is all going to support it. And that involves bringing experts in as soon as it is, as soon as it's practical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that brings me to the next talking point. So what is it that actually adds value? So I've been doing interior design for 7 years. I've done hundreds of projects that have spanned over millions of dollars of renovations in the Triangle area. And we know as realtors what the big areas are. Kitchens, is the kitchen updated? The kitchen is the heart of the home. The primary suite or the primary bathroom is also a really big area. So those are kind of some of the obvious ones. But flooring continuity, when have you walked into a home and you see like 6 different types of floor on the home on the first floor? So that is a really big one that's not obvious. So choosing a material that's cohesive throughout the first and the second floor. And it's okay to have 1 or 2, like mixing an LVP with a carpet or a hardwood with a carpet, having tile in your bathrooms. Those are standard. Lighting plan is really big. Walking into a home and seeing all builder grade lighting, that is such an easy update. Updating all of the lighting, hardware such as doorknobs, if those are really out of date or not looking great as well. And then, as Dirk mentioned, layout changes and opening up spaces, that can make a really big difference as well. If you want to open up a bedroom and make it a little bit larger. I had a home, actually one of the case studies, where it had this huge bonus room, like 30 feet long by 20 feet wide. And it wasn't the best use of space. So what we did is we added another bedroom to that and then made that bonus room a little bit smaller and moved the laundry up to that second floor. So we get to add a second, it was actually a fourth bedroom, which ended up being a nursery for their little boy that they had later that year after we finished the renovations. So maximizing the square footage within the footprint of the home rather than doing an addition is a really big one for adding value. What do you see on your side, John?
I think when I look for a home to kind of renovate, like fix and flip, some standards I hold to is I don't want anything like 1975 or younger, right? And then I've tried to do homes where with other investors where it's maybe like a 3, 1.5. So I don't know if you guys have seen like houses where there's a full bathroom that's shared, and then the master or the primary bathroom has a sink and a toilet, no shower, right? So then now I got to think, okay, I got to pull permits, get a plumber, I got to create more space to add a shower in there, and then what's that layout going to look like? What's it going to cost me? How much of my ROI is that going to take off if I'm doing that? So I'll look at things like that. I'll look at things like, am I going to buy a home that's on a double yellow where there's constant traffic, and is the buyer going to have young kids where, you know, they're going to see this house, hey, it's a great house, but it's on the double yellow line. I don't want my kid running in the street and getting hit by a car. I'll always get an inspection, so I'll make sure that, hey, the roof's good, all the systems are good. So I'll pay, you know, anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 for those inspections, and sometimes it's a no, and I lost $1,500, but I didn't lose even more because there were things that just were not structurally, like Dirk was saying, that would have cost more money to fix and would have taken out of my ROI at the end.
One question I might have for you is what is a higher sort of profit for you? Is it interiors? Is it additions? Is it like fully detached ADUs, that kind of thing? You know, we do a lot of additions. We do a lot of attached ADUs. So that's an accessory dwelling unit. That's where you make another separate house with its own entrance on the same property. And you're allowed to do that in both Raleigh and Durham. Mm-hmm. And you can make them either attached to the existing house, you can make them detached, like a fully separate house. Generally with clients who know that they want either something to rent out or something for their family member to live in, the decision to have either a detached ADU versus one that's attached to the house is actually daylighting. It's often really hard to put an addition on an existing house without blocking off an entire living room's windows, right? And so people will put accessory dwelling units, ADUs, as detached ones. But keep in mind, though, that when you make something detached, you know, not only are you building a whole nother foundation, which you would be, you're also building, it has to have its own heating and cooling system. It has to have its own plumbing connections and underground utilities. And it also has to have often its own electrical connection to the city. And so I'd be kind of interested in like what you guys I've seen. Have you guys got into, interiors versus
so
ADUs?
I did an Airbnb. It was in South Raleigh on a lake. Actually ran to this guy's house and said, I'm going to buy your house right now. It was on market, so it had a detached garage already. So my plan was to just convert the whole thing. It was on a pond, huge pond, and I took the detached garage and converted it to ADU. So I put a mini split, right, so I can heat and cool that, and then have to run like a full HVAC. It was already roughed in for plumbing, so I had toilet and shower available already. So that was a great, just something that came with the house. And then the biggest thing I had to do was kind of float the floor because it was on a slab. So then we just kind of put another subfloor to put LVP, so it was completely flush and even. And then so water wouldn't get in the house as well, right? So then we graded it out, and I kept the garage doors just kind of for the aesthetic, but then we insulated the whole entire, the roof, the house, the siding, and I was able to take that and Airbnb 2 homes at once, right? So for me, it was a great investment because I was renting the primary home for $500 a night, and then that little ADU, which is kind of basically like It's probably half the size of this room, maybe a quarter. I don't know. But that was going for like $300 a night, right?
Yeah, I think for that use case, it makes sense. For a lot of our residential clients, we're working within the existing footprint of the home, and we're taking down walls or renovating spaces that already exist. We have done some additions, but for example, we have a home right now in Cary that's probably going to be about a $700,000 renovation. Half of that will go to the interior of updating the entire kitchen and expanding that, taking the living room and turning it into an indoor-outdoor living with large moving doors that open to a deck. We're taking screened-in porch and converting those into covered porches. And then the addition over on the other side of the first floor is adding about 500 square feet to make a new primary suite with bedroom, bathrooms that's like his and her bathroom and his and her closet. But to add about 500 square feet as an addition is going to be about $200,000. So really it's thinking about how do you want to stretch your funds? Do you want to put them into the existing structure and update all of your hard finishes, maybe make some layout changes and really stretch your renovation budget that way? Or do you want to add an addition to your home? Because you could do both of them, but you're going to double your budget. Or you could take that half of that budget and really, put it to the inside of what you're doing. So that's more of what we do with renovations. And we find that clients purchase homes and want to work within the structure of what they already have.
Do you see people planning for like generational living? So like, hey, I have a house, but I also have this extra land. I want to need to use some of my kids, right? Because a lot of us, the average age of someone buying a house now is 40. So your kid comes home from college, doesn't have a place to live. I'm going to build him a ADU. They're going to live there. Or hey, my in-laws or whoever is going to live here now. We want to build an ADU on our extra land. Do you see that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And for those clients, there's a real financial incentive because they say, hey, I want to have my relative live near me. And if they already own the land, building an ADU is the cheapest way to do that instead of buying a whole new property. An ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, whether it's attached or detached, because they're small, they have a really high cost per square foot. It's just something you can't really get around. But for clients who already own the land, it makes a lot of sense financially.
All right, let's talk about finishes that increase ROI. So selections that hold value is really important. A lot of my clients, they are going to be staying in their home for 10, 15, 20 years. They're not looking to invest in interior design and construction just to turn around and sell their home 2 to 5 years later. So that's a conversation that we always have up front as well, is how long do you envision yourself in this home? What do you see your lifestyle being like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And how can we make that happen through our design choices and making smart, intentional decisions with how we design a layout and the finishes that we select. So timeless over trendy is a lot of what we do at Spot Interior Design. So picking timeless finishes. Sorry, words are hard. So quartz, thinking light, bright, airy, classic, mixed metals. So not going too trendy with like lots of black everywhere, but we try to make little subtle additions when we can if someone really wants those details. Durable materials are really important as well. Countertops are a whole visit to the stone yard is one of our meetings that we do for a few hours on an afternoon. And that's to talk about all the different stone materials. If you want quartz, that's really durable because it doesn't stain, it doesn't etch, but you can't put hot pots directly on a quartz countertop. It will burn it or it will melt it, but it doesn't require any kind of maintenance. You don't have to seal quartz because it's essentially resin. It's like a plastic composite. But if you want a natural stone, that comes with some upkeep. So marble, quartzite, soapstone, even we're doing in a kitchen. And we've sat with her and said, you understand your soapstone, you're going to have to oil it if you want it to have this darker finish. If you don't want the darker finish, you can leave it and it will look more gray. So looking at different materials and the durability of the lifestyle that you have. If you have little kids, you probably want quartz. If you have older kids that understand, don't put the lemons on the marble, don't leave your marinara sauce, don't leave a bottle of red wine open and you have stains all over your marble. It depends on the lifestyle and what they want in selecting those materials. Cohesive palettes throughout the home, like I mentioned before, if we have more of a traditional home, selecting finishes and even molding styles that go with the construction of the home so that it looks like it has been there from the beginning. We don't want someone to walk in, especially resale later down the road 20 years from now, 10 years from now. We don't want the buyer to walk in and it to be obvious that these finishes were not original. And then high visibility upgrades. So some of the biggest ones that can make the biggest impact visually are countertops, tile, and your fixtures, as we talked about previously. John, what do you think about that?
Yes, I think when I go to do a whole house, I lead with functionality. Like if I was going to live in this house, how would the house, for me living in it, how much storage do I want? How do I want, when I have guests in my house, how do I want it to present? And I'll go from there with, cabinetry, tile, design. If I want the primary to look like a spa feel. So, if I lived here, I want the owner to feel like, hey, when it's time to, shower or wind down, you're at a spa, right? I want to add accents, like accent walls, wallpaper. So when, you have guests over, your guests are like, how this is great. And one thing I do really look for is just turnkey, right? Like we all go on Zillow right now, 90% of the houses are going to need some kind of paint, new cabinets, wallpaper taken down. So I want it to be turnkey. So my product is going to be something that a consumer is going to want to buy, 90% more than any other product on the market.
What's your average day on market for homes you flipped this year?
The last one we did we were on 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's good.
So how about you when you design?
I think you guys know more about interior finishes and their the ROI on them than I do. But another thing is sort of the sustainability aspects of like, can you sell a house for a higher price based on, is it green or that kind of thing? Based on our labor numbers, you're never going to get a good ROI on like improving the insulation of a house. Energy costs are just so low and it's relatively expensive to like strip out the entire walls or the roof and all of that. That it's if it's a client that just cares about money, they're not going to get a payback. One of the, particularly for either it's a flip or new construction, solar panels are one of the best returns on investments. The difficulty is they do require a pretty high upfront cost from a client. But one thing that you might be able to do if you're evaluating a property is when it gets inspected, say, hey, is the roof strong enough to hold solar panels on top? And that can be the kind of thing you might be able to advertise, because adding solar panels to an existing house is actually pretty easy. And if you wanted to go a little bit further, you can do things like putting an empty metal pipe conduit from the electrical box up into the attic so that it's ready to be installed out. That's like pretty cheap to do and could be something that differentiates you on the market.
Want to take a second and thank them. There's a lot of information that goes into what all three of them do. I don't want to miss the opportunity to have Annie present her case studies. So if we can go ahead and do that, let me get that slide up for you, Annie, because I think that's something that everybody can benefit from. We're up there.
Perfect. Case study number 1. So this home is over by, I guess it's now Lenovo Center. I keep calling it PNC Arena. So these clients, they purchased the home in March of 2023 and their realtor referred them to us. And you can see in the bottom photos, this home had not been touched since the 1970s. So the renovation budget, they purchased for $465,000. Renovation budget was around $150,000. And the key changes that we made is we opened up the kitchen on the first floor. The laundry room was actually in the middle of the kitchen in this layout. So we got rid of that and opened it up to the dining room, moved the laundry upstairs into that really large bonus space that I was telling you about. added another bedroom upstairs. We changed all of the flooring to LVP. You can see that there was linoleum in the kitchen. We did keep the original parquet floors that are in the foyer, and we tried to match the tone as close as possible to the LVP. So we kept a little bit of the character when you walk into the home. We've refinished those floors, layout changes, opened up walls on the first floor, added decorative molding throughout the home, changed out all of the lighting, renovated the kitchen, 2 of the guest bathrooms, the primary bathroom, and then moved that laundry upstairs. So Maya ran the comps for me, and the after renovation value is around $750,000. So over the last 2 years, they have gained over $136,000 in equity, and that will continue to go up as they stay in this home over the next 10 to 15 years.
And I did run the comps over the last 3 months, and we know that the market has changed, so this is very current.
Yep.
Good job.
Thank you. This is in your old neighborhood.
Yeah. I know the house.
I know this neighborhood well. Okay, next case study. So you can see here the theme here was light, bright, spa-like, very classic and traditional for this client. The kitchen before, we did not change any of the cabinets. We refreshed the countertops, the backsplash tile, added new hardware to the cabinets, and changed out the lighting. That is all that we did in that space. And then the primary bathroom we renovated. It was just very outdated 90s. And the powder bathroom was builder grade. We added wall molding with wallpaper, changed out the vanity wall, the fixtures in there as well. So that renovation budget was about $80,000 for the refreshes that we did. We changed out all the lighting throughout the home as well. Purchase price, this was during COVID, so they got a good deal at $400,000. And the after renovation value is $667,000, which, as Maya said, these are recent comps within the last 3 months. I'm friends with this client. I sent her this slide yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, my realtor told me the home is worth like $825,000." And I was like, "Maya, is it really?" That was earlier this year when the market was much different. So, you can see that if things pick up or over the next 10, 15 years, if they stay there, they probably would get closer to that $1 million mark. So right now, as things stand, the net equity gain is about $187,000 for these clients.
Regardless, definitely a great return on that.
Yeah, great return for them. Yeah, and it's a beautiful home that they get to enjoy with their family. And one day when they do decide to sell, it'll be move-in ready and turnkey for whoever buys it.
Very good. Well, I wanted to thank all 3 of you so much for coming out here and joining us today. Is there any final words, Annie, any advice that you would like to give us? If, for anybody that is either buying a home to renovate themselves, if they are working with a buyer that they want to maybe refer over to you, anything that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I love working with realtors. As I said, I have my broker's license, and I love the work that I do. I'm so passionate about it because we can take an old home and bring it new life. And in a market where we have so many homes that are from the 2000s that are outdated, you as a realtor, that can be your competitive edge, your value add. Like, hey, I have a design team that can come in and help reimagine this space and make it truly custom to your family, your needs, how you want to live here, and protect your investment and the equity that you're going to be building in this home at the same time. So for me, it is such a great partnership to work with realtors because I think of renovation from, a full 360 view of the client, what they want, the finishes, how do I protect their investment, and knowing that someone is taking their life savings and putting it into a home and really trusting our team with that. And so it's a huge honor to be able to do the work that we do. So John, anything to add?
I guess as an investor, for this is kind of where I take everything from. If you guys, anyone here that's realtors, if you guys ever come across, you're at a listing appointment and you're like, hey, this is how I got the last one I did. The house wasn't going to be able to sell as a hoarder house. So by the time they would get the house cleaned up, put on market, paid out the agents on both sides, probably in 6 to 9 months, right? So if you guys ever come across that and you're like, oh, this is a dead deal, I can't list this house, feel free to reach out to me. We will, so again, in this instance, I paid the listing agent, right? So the seller didn't have to pay the listing agent. I didn't take a buyer's commission. Everyone won. We closed in 2 weeks. We flipped the house in 2 months, sold it in 2 weeks, closed last week. They got paid out what was due to them, and everyone wins, right? So if you guys ever come across that, there's always a way to get through. And this is something I've learned in real estate. Like, we get taught to traditionally, buy, sell, buy, sell. There's so many other creative ways. And even if you guys want to get involved in creative financing, flipping, we always look for, people to partner or JV with. We have contracts. It's, if you just, like these guys were saying, how do you get started? This is how I got started. I got put on with investors, learned how to, that's how I learned to actually design. I had an eye for it for some reason. I had no clue I did. And I'd help these investors design their homes. They let me list the homes. And then as I build up my skill set, I then charged them for design services and then to list the homes. And then I just did it on my own. So if you guys ever want to get into the investing, you don't need $100,000. I got into it, started with about 15, 20. So any money I make in real estate, I reinvest. And then I just kind of snowballed that, made it bigger and bigger. And then with that, I build, that's where I start to build my generational wealth for my kids, teach them, everything, and just keep it going. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or want to have any interest in, participating in a renovation, or you come across that client that you're like, I can't sell this house because no one's going to make money, I'll find a way.
Real quick, John, and that's a really good point. One of the reasons we're here is to make these connections. So it's not just about putting them up there to, give us their stories, but really to learn. And I think you said that, people are willing to teach you. People are willing to answer questions for you. You have to ask. You have to build those relationships, and you have to be willing to ask and listen and learn. Thanks, John.
I think it's easier to reach out to all the different partners you're going to need, like an engineer or an architect or the city with permitting, than you think. So those people are often really helpful, actually really approachable. So I would just encourage you that if you feel like you're sort of at the edge of where your comfort zone is, or you need someone who has more expertise, there's a lot of resources out there, both in the sort of the private commercial groups, as well as within